It's almost midnight on the 17th of January 1998. The phone rings inside Michele Tollis' house. It's his 16 years old son Fabio. He's at the Midnight Pub in Milan, Italy, a popular spot among fans of hard rock and heavy metal music. He's asking his dad for permission to spend the night at his friend Chiara's house. Michele denies it. He doesn't know this Chiara. Also, his son's speech is slurred, like he's intoxicated. After having ended the call, sensing that something may be wrong, he decides to go pick Fabio up himself. So he gets in the car and rushes to the Midnight Pub. But when he gets there, Fabio and Chiara are nowhere to be found. Worried, he speaks to some of his son's friends who are still in the pub. They explain to him that the two had left a few minutes prior, probably to spend some time together, but no one seems to know where they've gone. At this point, not knowing what to do and reassured by Fabio's friends, Michele decides to give up and go back home, expecting his son to show up in the morning. Fast forward to the morning of Saturday 24th of February 2004 in a small town near Varese, in the north of Italy. The air is cold and foggy. No one's out yet. Suddenly, the peace and quiet of the early hours are broken by someone screaming to the top of their lungs. It's a young man, heavily intoxicated, looking completely out of his mind as he paces up and down a parking lot. In his delirium, he's screaming that something really bad just happened, something unforgivable. His name is Andrea Volpe. When the police arrive on the scene, all they can gather from his incoherent ramblings is that his girlfriend, Elisabetta, is hurt and needs help. She's found soon after, a few miles away, inside a car crashed on a narrow bridge. Nearby is a second car, abandoned. Seeing that she is unresponsive and showing signs of an overdose, the police decide to immediately transport her to the nearest hospital to be treated, together with Andrea. Upon regaining consciousness, she is interviewed by police and makes a shocking revelation. They've done something terrible. They've killed someone. A woman named Mariangela. She was an ex-girlfriend of Andrea. Her family has just reported her as missing. The car Elisabetta crashed on the bridge belongs to her. Pressed by the police to reveal the location of the body, she then talks about an isolated cabin, where she's been living with her boyfriend Andrea for the past few months. Authorities immediately start heading there, driving through the thick woods, following her directions. Upon arrival to this cabin in the middle of nowhere, they find a place that looks more like an encampment than a house. It's filthy and in complete disarray, and showing clear signs that a fight had recently taken place. Capsized furniture, broken plates on the floor, and traces of blood everywhere. They also find a rifle and a handgun. Then investigators discover markings on the ground outside, like someone had been dragged. They go from the house, through the garden, to a shed that resembles a greenhouse. Once on the inside, something immediately catches their eye. There's what looks like the tip of a shoe sticking out the ground in the middle of the shed. There, in a shallow grave, is Mariangela's lifeless body, her face beaten to the point that she's almost unrecognizable. When asked about it, despite admitting to having killed her, Volpe maintains it was an accident. A gunshot exploded by mistake during an argument between the two. The case immediately makes headlines all over the country. In a town a few miles away, a middle-aged man is watching the news when he hears a name he knows all too well: Andrea Volpe. He is shocked. He spent the past 6 years investigating the disappearance of his son Fabio and his girlfriend Chiara. Andrea was part of his son's group of friends, and he's absolutely sure they had something to do with it, and that Mariangela's murder is connected in some way. He quickly gathers all the evidence he collected over the years and rushes to the police. After hearing his story, investigators go back to confronting Volpe. 17th of January 1998. A group of friends gather at the Midnight Pub in Milan. Among them Fabio Tollis, Chiara Marino, Andrea Volpe, Nicola Sapone, Mario Maccione, Pietro Guerrieri. They've been hanging out together for a while, united by the common passion for heavy metal, some of them even playing in a band together. At some point, a new member had joined the group, Paolo Leoni, an old friend of Chiara's. He's extremely charismatic and quickly became the leader of the group. Through his influence, the group started developing new, more sinister passions, occultism and Satanism. Passions Paolo inherited from his father, a known Satanist and convicted murderer. They slowly shifted from simply listening to music to desecrating cemeteries, fighting, making heavy use of drugs, and organizing tests of courage, like jumping off bridges or putting out cigarettes on their bodies. To make it official, they decided to give themselves a name, the Beasts of Satan, inspired by the book of Revelation in the New Testament, in which is written about a beast emerging from the sea, associated with the number 666. What once was a normal group of friends has quickly become a satanic cult. It's almost midnight on January 17. Fabio Tollis is on the phone trying to convince his father Michele to let him stay to sleep at Chiara's house. Michele doesn't give his permission, but Fabio decides to go anyway. What he has to do is too important to back off last minute. Of course, he's not actually going to Chiara's house, but to a local forest, with her and their friends Andrea Volpe, Mario Maccione and Nicola Sapone. Another member of the group, Andrea Bontade, will join them at the location. They are going deep into the woods to celebrate a ritual to Satan. After driving in thick fog through narrow country roads, they reach an entrance to the forest. The place is eerily quiet, and there's no trace of Andrea Bontade, who was supposed to be waiting for them. The five friends decide to proceed anyways and make their way into the darkness of the woods. After walking on a narrow path for a few minutes, they reach an opening in the vegetation. On the ground, a big hole has already been dug. At this point, their ritual begins. Volpe, Sapone and Maccione pull out two knives and a hammer they kept hidden underneath their clothes, and brutally assault Fabio and Chiara from behind. Sapone stabbing Chiara 64 times, while Maccione and Volpe attack Fabio, cutting him with a knife and hitting him on the head with the hammer. The two teens try to raise their hands to protect themselves and beg for mercy, but in the eyes of their attackers, there's no trace left of the friends they used to be. The ritual the cult had decided to carry out was in fact a human sacrifice to Satan, planned without Fabio and Chiara knowing. They had only been given vague information about what the ritual was actually about, and surely did not suspect their friends to be planning their homicide. According to what the killers later revealed, the two teens were chosen as victims because in the past few weeks they both had manifested a desire to leave the cult, which would never be allowed by the older and more influential members. Also, the romantic relationship they had created resentment in Paolo Leoni, the group's leader, who had been a friend of Chiara since childhood and viewed her as his own property. He would never allow a smaller fish like Fabio to win her over, somehow undermining his authority. After having murdered them, the killers dumped the two bodies in the hole they had dug a few days prior, filling their mouth with chestnuts found on the ground nearby and urinating on their remains as a sign of contempt. Then they smoked cigarettes dipped in their victims' blood, before filling the hole with soil and leaving like nothing happened. In the following days, Maccione, Leoni, as well as other members appear on TV saying they have no idea where the couple may have gone, even going as far as to ask the public for help in finding them. The police immediately launch an investigation, but since no clue is ever found, the case quickly loses steam and interest from the public. By now, the cult has already identified its next victim. He participated in digging Fabio and Chiara's grave, but didn't show up on the night of the murder like he was supposed to. It's Andrea Bontade. The group is afraid he may break and confess what he knows. They immediately begin keeping an eye on him, constantly showing up at his house to remind him to keep his mouth shut. Then, for months, they torment him, trying to make him lose his mind by having him take heavy drugs and verbally abusing him, telling him he's a coward and deserves to die. Bontade lives in terror, knowing his friends will never forget him for what he's done, and constantly fearing for his life. He begins suffering from hallucinations and losing touch with reality. One night, he's in his car, giving Andrea Volpe and Nicola Sapone a ride home. Upon arrival, Sapone hands him some cash for the gas and a handwritten note. Bontade reads it. Either you do it or we will. The following day, the morning news reported the discovery of Andrea Bontade's lifeless body. He had driven his car at full speed straight into a wall. February 2004, 6 years after effects. Andrea Volpe is a drug addict living with his girlfriend Elisabetta Ballarin. Despite coming from a wealthy family and being only 18 years old, Andrea's negative influence has already pushed her to become heavily addicted to drugs. She had left school a few months prior to go live with her boyfriend in the cabin her father used as a vacation home, where the couple survived off the money her parents gave her, using it mostly to buy drugs. The disappearance of Fabio Tollis and Chiara Marino is still a mystery to authorities, and there never was a proper investigation into Andrea Bontade's suicide. The Beasts of Satan are still on the loose. No one outside the group knows it even exists. Despite all of this, among the members is spreading the fear that someone might know something and might eventually decide to reveal it to the wrong people. The person they're referring to is Mariangela, an ex-girlfriend of Volpe. After being in a toxic relationship with him for 9 years, time during which she was constantly abused, she decided to finally end it. And for the past couple of years she had been busy creating a new life for herself, opening a clothing store with the support of a loving family, and looking forward to the future. Despite all the years of violence and abuse, she is still somehow attached to Volpe, and is often available to help him even economically. On the night of the 23rd of February, Mariangela hears her phone ringing. It's her ex Andrea. He asks her to bring him a videotape to the cabin where he lives with his new girlfriend. Mariangela rushes to the cabin. When she gets there, she finds Volpe already high on drugs. He invites her inside, then sends Elisabetta to another room to get more drugs. Left alone, the two start arguing. Suddenly, the situation escalates. Volpe grabs a gun he had on himself, points at Mariangela and pulls the trigger, shooting her in the head. She drops to the floor. At this point, Volpe panics. Not knowing what to do with the body, he decides to call fellow cult member Nicola Sapone to help him. When Sapone arrives at the cabin, after looking at Mariangela, he notices that she's still breathing and insults Volpe for not being able to kill her. Then they grab her and drag her outside to the shed in the garden. There, they quickly dig a shallow grave and toss her motionless body inside. Seeing that she's still alive, one of the two men picks up a shovel and, standing directly on top of her, starts beating her with it on the head and face, trying to finish her off, before finally covering her with dirt and leaving. The autopsy will later reveal that she was still alive when she was buried. It's now almost 3 a.m. After having disposed of the body, Sapone leaves. Andrea and Elisabetta decide to get rid of Mariangela's car by driving it to a nearby dam and pushing it in the water, even though they're both extremely high and in no condition to drive. In fact, their attempt at destroying evidence ends with her crashed on a bridge and him screaming in a nearby parking lot, where they're found by the police. Volpe's confession will eventually lead to the arrest of the Beasts of Satan and to the recovery, 6 years later, of Fabio and Chiara's bodies. In the end, Pietro Guerrieri, who dug Fabio and Chiara's grave, was sentenced to 12 years and 8 months in prison. He was released in 2013, having served 7. Mario Maccione, who cooperated with law enforcement, was given 19 years and a half, and was released in 2017, having served 13. Andrea Volpe, who also cooperated, was given 20 years and was released in 2020, having served 16. Elisabetta Ballarin, despite only being witness to one murder, was given 24 years. She managed to obtain a bachelor's degree while in prison and was released in 2017, having been pardoned by Mariangela's father. Paolo Leoni, the leader of the cult, was given 26 years and is still in prison. Nicola Sapone was given 2 life sentences and is still in prison. Other group members were convicted as well. Besides the 4 known victims, over the years the group has been linked to as much as 18 between murders and suicides, but authorities were never able to prove these allegations were true. This was the story of the Beasts of Satan and also my very first video, so thank you very much for watching till the end. Don't be afraid to leave a comment below if you feel there's something specific I should improve. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I will be posting new videos every single week. Thank you for watching.